So we had a rumor that was going around over the last 24 hours or so when it comes to Microsoft. And I was watching this unfold. I figured we would probably get either some kind of response from Microsoft or one of the more Microsoft focused outlets would tap their sources and get at least some kind of confirmation, or they're able to refute some of the information going around. Seems like we got both then. And it has to do with Microsoft leaving the hardware space for consoles, as in we would lose one of the three major platform holders and Xbox hardware would go away. I mean, there was discussion that Microsoft had canceled their plans for the next generation Xbox that we figured would show up as soon as next year in 2026. Well, the thing with that again is we have a report coming back and even a statement from Microsoft kind of refuting this, and we'll go over all the details of that tomorrow in Newswave. But I noticed something with all of this. People were pretty understanding of it and like, yeah, it makes sense. And I went, wow, that's really where we are right now with Xbox. And that's kind of where the sentiment is. And it's concerning because there is like almost this self-fulfilling prophecy to that, if that's where the audience and the general gaming population online, I should say, is. Again, very different from mainstream to that. But based on the sales that we're seeing that the mainstream would, you assume, be participating in to hold up, and that not necessarily being there, and people immediately ready to believe this, it makes me very concerned about the future of Xbox, which people are already concerned about it, but even their ability to make any kind of comeback, I'm questioning it quite a bit, and it makes me wonder about the future of the brand completely. But I'm going to go over that here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and you want to stick around a bit because I'm going to hit you with a wave of nostalgia later on in the video, okay? Because I want to make a point about sort of the feeling of attachment when it comes to the Xbox brand for people. At this point, I think it dates back decades now. I mean, think about the old days of Xbox. And I bring that up because I did a poll for Newswave tomorrow, and I asked people, what was the first Xbox you played? Could have been the first one you owned, maybe, but I said played because you may have gone to a friend's house and been like, oh, what's this game? Oh, it's an Xbox or a 360. And the vast majority of people, 70 to 80%, said either the original Xbox or the Xbox 360. And I think for many people, that's kind of the case. I don't know how many people look at the Xbox One and go, that's the one. Out of all the systems, the four big systems Microsoft's released, the four generations they've had, the Xbox One was it. That was the best one. Or the Series, Xbox Series. Most people, I think now, probably say Xbox 360 because it was on the market just outright twice as long as the original Xbox. But that also had a lot when it came to online play and so on. But the original Xbox had some really cool stuff going on. But that sense of attachment, I think, just comes from Xbox's glory days for the most part. And I did think about when I thought like peak Xbox gaming was happening. And I came up with a 5-year span that I'll also tell you about here in a little bit. I didn't want to just say an entire generation. Like, oh, it's the entire 8-year span of the 360. That's a pretty big span. I wanted to break it down to at least 5 years. All right. So the thing here, though, is with Xbox now, I know people very quickly were like, yeah, it makes sense. Of course, Microsoft getting out of hardware. Why would they be in hardware? Which that felt inconceivable back, we'll say, during the 360 days when we're getting towards the end of that. If I went, oh, they're canceling the next generation. The Xbox 720 is no longer a thing. You go, come on. You're just making that up. That is not real. If I told you, oh, Nintendo is not going to do anything. The Switch 2 is the last system Nintendo ever makes. Sony has canceled the PlayStation 6. Most people are going to go, no, that's not right. They're making that stuff. Come on. But so many people went, I could see that. Microsoft's not going to make a system after the Xbox Series. And I think that's just where we are right now with Microsoft, not only with the brand, with Xbox, but clearly the console. So we had the prices go up for the Xbox system and $650 for the 1 terabyte disc-based Xbox Series console. So many people go, well, that's just too expensive. Well, it turns out on the used market, these things are less than $400 all day. I'm seeing them at $350, like without any real trouble. So when you see that pop up, you go, how many people are even looking for the system? Because it kind of feels like the demand is just not there, but there's plenty of supply. And we see that GameStop and many retailers are still just selling $20 Game Pass cards And I figure it's just they have so many of them laying around. They go, well, we're not going to mark these things up. Maybe it'll work for foot traffic with all the discussion around this. But people keep saying and showing that they're canceling Game Pass. And we'll see if that number works out for Microsoft. 50% increase on price. Maybe they get 25% cancellations. I guess they come out then, I guess. But is that really coming out on top when you do a lot of damage to the sentiment around your brand where people are willing to believe that you're not going to make another Xbox and not going to introduce what you canceled plans with AMD that you announced a few months ago? People were ready to believe that. And you know what? There was also kind of the source that was around this. Again, we'll go over it some tomorrow. Was kind of built up a bit. Okay, by people who are generally pretty good about the Microsoft reporting, and that probably had something to do with it. But even before that, it's like, well, look where Microsoft is now. It's I don't know how they can work this out. So they're probably out of the hardware market. So with that in mind, there's this cascading effect that can happen. If you believe that you buy an Xbox knowing that there's not a future for it, why would you buy games on it? Why would you try to start building a digital library or add to a digital library that's very uncertain at this time? You would probably just avoid the Xbox then. And that's the cascading effect where, I mean, if you're on Xbox now, you might think to sell it or move away from it. And then it's that self-fulfilling prophecy where people they're just not going to buy into Xbox, and it'll just kind of dwindle down more and more and more until Microsoft's like, what are we doing here? Let's move off the hardware. So that makes sense. I think why Microsoft came out and did offer at least some kind of response. You sort of have to. Sentiment's already pretty low. Somehow it was about to go lower if they just kind of left that out there without any kind of response. Now, with all that being said, I look at their current strategy, which halfway through the Xbox One generation was really shifting over to Game Pass. That was the pillar that they wanted everything to focus around. Game Pass in the middle, and then any kind of devices that can access Game Pass would float around it, and that would include the Xbox Series, your PC, I guess phones, that was a plan. Haven't really heard much about that with, stuff going on with Apple and be able to even have a separate marketplace on the phone. But nonetheless, Game Pass was the central core pillar. And it made sense when it was $10 a month. When it was even 50, you can make a case $15 a month, right? It got to 20, and I feel like that was starting to push people, but they're like, okay, it's 20, but they keep coming out with a bunch of games. $30 absolutely seems to be the breaking point. And it's because now it's less of that impulse buy. Occasionally notice the subscription charge on your bank statement when you happen to look at it that week or something, right? To now it's, whoa, okay, that's $30. That's $306 a year. You start actually doing the math for the yearly charge, all right? So once Microsoft gets into that territory, it's not really a slam dunk of let's go for 100 million subscribers. Very clear Microsoft believes that they have capped out, and now it's time to make money from the people who are signed up to the service. Originally, Microsoft seemed to have plans for 100 million subscribers to Game Pass, and apparently the people who drew up those plans are no longer drawing up plans of Microsoft. But that was a very clear swing and a miss, as the subscription tiers for games and on-demand access to games, I mean, it's very clear there's not a Netflix-like cap to it or ceiling. The ceiling is much lower, especially when you don't really sell a lot of consoles. And that is the thing that is very weird to me for Microsoft. The best attach rate for Game Pass is if you sell an Xbox console, but they became very uninterested in selling Xbox consoles. So I don't really understand like the reasoning within Microsoft for that. And I don't know if the marketing phrase they're doing now, everything is an Xbox, is good, is working, because it still seems kind of confusing to people, because not everything is an Xbox, despite them saying everything is an Xbox. So now there's this weird position where Microsoft seems uninterested in selling you an Xbox, but they're still going to build another one that's going to cost a lot of money. So I almost wonder if they're just building with AMD a new chipset or setup. They'll have kind of their example box, but then they'll just sort of pass it off and let all these other manufacturers like your Asus make an Xbox. And that really is the strategy. And they'll just develop the OS that, hey, look, if they can get a really good OS that goes between everything, and maybe that includes a phone, that could be kind of cool. Then I'm like, all right, that makes sense for the future of Microsoft. It just being an Xbox operating system, provided the hardware that third parties show up with is good and can take advantage of it fully, like we see with consoles now, but very different than the old days of the Xbox, the nostalgia-driven days. And that is, I think, core to many of these systems, and certainly, say, for Nintendo, very nostalgia-driven at times, right? You know Mario, you've grown up with Mario, hey, there's a new Mario game, I want the new Mario game, this is the system I need. It's pretty cut and dry, it's very traditional. Nintendo hasn't strayed too far away from that. Sony's still hanging out in that territory. They're kind of leaning more and more towards, hey, let's put these PlayStation games elsewhere. But they're very console first still, to this day, right? There'll certainly be a PS6, go figure. But Microsoft is in this weird, almost no man's land now, to where they don't really have that nostalgia-driven marketing, and they don't really have anything replacing it necessarily. It's becoming more and more corporate feeling. So when I fire up an Xbox that I've had for a while, and I've kept it because of this, the idea of days past with Xbox, it is a thing, right? Like there are times where you bring up the 360 and the person you're talking to will just start going on and on and on for 10 or 20 minutes about how awesome the Xbox 360 era was, right? I mentioned that with the poll results. Seems like people are pretty clear about that in the comments. So there's an Xbox 360 I've kept around. If you've been around the channel for a while, you know which one I'm referring to. Let me go ahead and turn it on. That's right, it is a Blade system. This is the OS that the 360 originally launched with in 2005. We had it for about 3 years, up through 2008, before it was replaced with the NXE system. And that was still fine. That one was still very gaming-driven, gaming first, and it did add a bunch of functionality. But the Blade system itself screams video games. I mean, you turn it on, and I mean, you just got like bright colors hitting you, very video game-centric. You know, it does. And I get Microsoft's like, it looks kind of like almost like a toy to a degree. Yeah, it's a video game system. I don't know why people were shy with it. Yes, you're playing video games, go figure. But something about this, it's not even necessarily the simplicity to it, but just something about this is like, they're selling you a video game system because they want to make video games and then sell you video games. And that's what they were doing back then. The 360, I still look back on as one of my favorite generations of all time. I said I was going to give you guys a span of 5 years that I think was a peak for Xbox. And I think you can make a case that it's peak just for gaming completely because of the online play, sort of the breakout sensation of certain franchises that are still running right now. And that span would have been holiday 2005 with the launch of the Xbox 360 through holiday of 2010. That's legendary time period there. 5 years. Of course, I'll look to things like Halo 3. That was a big one for me. But even the breakout of Call of Duty going to Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was huge. You have Assassin's Creed in there. Still going now. Experiencing something like BioShock for the first time. I was even one of the crazy people who liked Final Fantasy 13 when it released and thought it was insane that Microsoft had that reveal. I mean, think about it back then. PlayStation, Final Fantasy, and wait a minute, 13's getting announced on the Xbox 360 showcase. And Mass Effect, which Mass Effect 2 capped all this off in 2010, and it was just incredible stuff. So you can go back through just the library of games, but that really ran up until Microsoft started looking at the broader market. Like they started doing things with Kinect because, I mean, the Wii worked very well, and Sony also looked towards things like the Move controller and stuff like that. So it wasn't just Microsoft, but Microsoft got like completely bought in to mainstream being completely necessary for the Xbox brand. And that then led them down this road with the Xbox One, where it was about TV, entertainment, everything outside of gaming. And we got to the point where they wanted to do cloud gaming to reach 2 billion gamers. And there's still so many questions around how cloud gaming is going to work. And it's 2025 right now. So it seems weird for Microsoft currently and what they've turned into versus what they came from here. And I know not everyone's going to look back on these old days as great. There was no Fortnite or live service or complete interconnectability that we have now with social media and stuff. To a degree, though, I think that's a positive at times. But this was just such an interesting time period. I think awesome time period for pure gaming. You buy the game, you go home, you put it in the Xbox 360, and get this, it turned right on, and the whole game was on the disc. It was craziness, I know. It's wild stuff. And everything felt very new back then. There's a lot of creativity happening around this time period. And this was when Microsoft was kind of in the driver's seat and Sony was on their back foot. So by 2010, you were getting Sony's A game with their stuff coming out, and they got the price. It was cool stuff. It was. And yes, you may have just listened to old man shakes fist at clouds there while showing you this old Blade system that, by the way, next month is going to be 20 years old. But this is the Xbox that I think about when I see the Xbox brand pop up, and I see that logo. I'm like, man, that's it. That was the Xbox back then. It is a very different feeling company now. And you know what? It does feel like it is, it's very executive driven. And it was back then too. Now, though, it feels like it's executive driven by executives who don't really know about games at all. And it's more about let's drive the revenue up really far. Let's see what we can do here with this and throw a Fortnite pass in there and call it a day. Let me know what you guys think about this one down below, because the thing that concerns me the most about all of this, I'm trying hard to figure out what Microsoft's path back to greatness would be. I don't necessarily know if I see it right now with either the current leadership or the current direction, because they don't really seem interested in trying to tie games to funnel people to a platform. Two, they seem more focused on a subscription service that gets more expensive, every 7 or 8 months. And 3, they have no concerns about raising prices on hardware. So I assume that the next system they release is going to be more than $800, and we might have a $1,000 Xbox system on our hands. So who knows where we go? And maybe that's the problem. A lot of uncertainty around the Xbox brand, as in, what does the future look like even a year from now? But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Was this really just old man me looking at the old days of the Xbox? Or is there something more to it? And do other people out there also kind of feel this in the air right now around the current state of the Xbox brand? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.